following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I am joined with Carl Hindy, the father of Greg Hindy, who was recently on the show. I guess we can call it the Silent Walk Across America, or the American Walk in Silence.
1 year performance art project.
Okay.
Endurance art project, Walking Silent.
Well, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
And I remember interviewing Greg and thinking, as the show ended, I felt this paternal, oh my gosh, good luck to you, man. Yeah. You're walking across America. It's no really a whole bunch of resources, just your camera, maybe your ATM card, maybe or whatever.
A tent that folds into a small little package, and a cart that he pulls, and right. Hopefully enough water he takes on board for the stretches. In fact, that's one of the concerns as he heads out west, and there are longer stretches between services.
Right.
What if he gets to that road, next gas station in 200 miles, to be prepared for that, whatever he might face.
As a parent, I have a son who likes to climb mountains, mm-hmm. And every time I look at a mountain, I see like a cliff, I think, oh, yeah. It's just one of those moments where, he's probably doing something in the dark, but I can relate, even though he's not doing mm-hmm. mountain climbing, he's still walking across. He's pretty much exposed. And that's what I took away from that, the last part of our conversation. I think what gets missed is a little bit about the art form. And I forgot even the name of the art person that he was kind of following in his pattern. But talk a little bit about that as a parent, and how's he doing?
Well, he departed on his birthday, July 9th, from Nashua, and the plan is that he'll take a long route to be sure that he fills a whole year before arriving in Los Angeles, July 9th, adjusted for 3 hours due to time zone. And he'll complete a video that he started on his departure. He'll complete it a year later on his next birthday in 2014 when he arrives. In the meantime, he's largely out of communication with us, and you can imagine it's anxiety-provoking as parents, and so the little bits of data become more important. For me, a primary way of my knowing where he's been is that I'm on his bank account, so I can log on and I can see where he's used his debit card.
Right.
It may be somewhat delayed, but I can see that he was at a grocery store in Virginia the other day, and I can put it on Google Earth and get a sense of where it's at.
Is he going through the metropolises or the back roads?
It's more the back, it's kind of the Blue Highway route,
yeah.
And as I say, a long route. He departed New Hampshire and went down through Connecticut, stopped in New Haven, where of course he has friends, continued then all the way across northern Pennsylvania to Youngstown, Ohio, where he has a cousin, and he stayed at that point and exchanged film. I knew he'd arrive there eventually, so I drop-shipped the next load of film, and
nice.
He returned film back.
Are you developing it for him, or?
Oh no, it's mostly black and white. It's maybe 5-to-1 black and white to color, right. And he wants it all saved for when he arrives. Now, of course, nervous parent, I think, well, we're going through all this grief and fear.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to get to California and find out that it didn't work, and I've got to say, well, Greg, sorry, you don't mind walking back, do you?
Exactly.
But of course, for him, it's
Hey,
more
we got a
about the whole
blackout here.
performance.
Right.
Chill out, Dad.
Yeah.
But what he actually decided to do, I didn't discover until I got a message card with the black and white film, is that every so many sheets of film, and this is a big field camera, it's a big ordeal to shoot one picture. It's not like running around with 1,000 pictures at a time on your digital. It's a half-hour process to load the film and, and all that.
Wait, just hold it right there.
Yeah, so you can imagine they're not sports pictures.
Right, yeah.
The stadium's empty. But every so often he'd shoot a color image. And those color film, that box of color film, he sent off to a fine art processing facility in New York with instructions to phone me right away and tell me about any exposure difficulties so I could then relay it to the next point.
Oh, interesting.
Like Ohio.
Right.
So it was good to get word that all the color stuff was perfectly exposed, so that gives us a little more hope that all the intervening black and white ones are fine as well.
Yeah.
So getting the film and that word has been another bit of feedback. It's interesting that as I was torturing over all of it as a parent before he left, he said, Dad, you're going to seem like you know more than ever what I'm doing. For the past 4 years, you dropped me off at college and you assume there's nothing to worry about. He's at college. Did you get to your courses? What do you take? And, you assume that all is well, but as he says, well, you didn't really know what I was doing. Of course, that has me wonder, what didn't I know?
Animal House. Yeah.
But the point is well taken, that now, every small bit of data takes on more meaning. Somebody popped up on our Facebook page who says they saw him and met him and were impressed and so on. Wow, he's okay, or, he's arrived at a grocery store 25 miles down the road from the last one, so he's chugging along. He must be doing well. So we're more focused on him than ever, even though it's such a simpler quality about it.
Right.
Which I think is interesting, because I tend to look at the whole thing from a higher altitude and think that this is all a performance art project. Not just you, Greg, but us as parents, us as friends, how we're all reacting and dealing with it. You know what I mean? We're all part of the artwork as well, and I think that's some of what he'll think about on all of this.
Yeah, as a parent, I think you go through different phases. I can remember having parental anxiety when they were little, thinking, "Oh my God, these kids are going to be gone." And sure enough, now that I'm older, they're gone. They're doing their own things. But my son went to Afghanistan, and I remember receiving just one phone call while I was at the gym, and I listened to every word. I listened. I knew exactly the mood he was in. There was a delay. I was focused, and so you tend to cherish that very brief moment. And I think some of what you're trying to get across is the people, when they're communicating with them, they're really communicating almost I guess you want to call it art, spiritual or something. It's taking on a different meaning. You're not texting.
Right.
There's a lot more color because you're looking in his eyes. You're looking at the card. I'm fine.
That's one of the most fascinating things, in my view, is the way people are moved by him. He'll meet someone. He's walking along and he passes somebody who's working on their stone wall, and he walks by, and this guy runs into the house and says to his wife, "Somebody who just walked by, who I think is on a long-distance trip." And they go out and talk to him, and they have him over for dinner, and they have him camp in the backyard and let him use the shower. And they say, "We had such a great conversation," meaning Greg wrote on little index cards. And here are all the cards, and there's a handful of cards. It doesn't say a lot, I'm Greg, I left Nashua on July 9th, this is my mission, I'm taking pictures, and people are like fascinated with this. And oftentimes after he leaves, they'll put up on the Facebook page things like, I'll never forget my encounter with Greg. Right? Whereas the rest of us are talking 10,000 words a day, and and people want to forget us.
Exactly. Honey, what'd you say? Honey, I'm sorry. What'd you say? That happens a lot.
So I think of the analogy, the sort of radio analogy of the signal to noise ratio. He's turned the noise down so low that the signal is clear and there's a sense of connection.
Right.
Whereas the rest of us are paying all these internet and bills and cell phone bills to be connected. And I think we're feeling more alienated and disconnected than ever.
Oh.
So that's why I think there's a lot of meaning in all this that would be interesting for us to discuss. That's why I think the Facebook discussions can really be rich, separate from what Greg's purpose is.
Right.
It's up to Greg to come back and tell us what this all means for him. We're all sitting around in the comfort of our lazy boy recliners talking about what the meaning of it is.
Right.
But
I think off camera this whole dawned on me. This whole Forrest Gump thing dawned on me. Even when I was talking to him, I remember a part in Forrest Gump where he's just started running, and he kept running and running, and then he got followers. And I thought, and they didn't know why they were following him. They thought there was some type of spiritual message behind it. No, I'm just running. But they wanted to be connected. People are longing for something. There's something missing. And like you said, there's a lot of white noise out there. There's a lot of texting. A lot of, I played in a band for a long time. And I can remember towards the end where we would be playing our heart out. And we would be watching people sitting at the table, 6 or 8 of them. They're all on their cell phones. Really? Totally just not paying attention, and it just kind of took me back. Hey, I'm singing. Hey, come here. Look up here. Or when you're talking to somebody, they all of a sudden look at their cell phone, and I found myself doing that periodically too. I really wasn't paying attention, and so it's interesting that he throws up a flashcard, and that one word or that one little phrase takes on.
Every word now has meaning.
Right.
And to the Forrest Gump analogy, I like that because, and I know Greg wants people to find their own meaning in it. Like any artwork, you stand in the museum and look at the painting and you imagine what it means for you.
Right.
Separate from what it means for Greg. And that's why it's important to him. His mission is that this is a simple, ascetic, humble task. You mentioned Forrest Gump. I mean, Greg says, I'm just walking and taking pictures.
That's it. That's it. But and he's not expressing verbally, right. And I think that takes on a certain discipline that you've got to be focused. One blurt and oh crap, or you stub your toe, ouch, that's got to take a huge amount of discipline, a lot of thought. But he said he was up for the task. And so how's the weather treating him, by the way?
I don't know. I mean, there was occasional feedback from people he met that there was a drenching rainstorm or this or that, but I don't know. So much awaits his return to tell us. These little artifacts that we get and put up on Facebook, all are big stories for him to tell.
What is his Facebook page anyway? Is it just Greg Hindy?
It's called, well, it's a group page. It's called Greg Hindy 1 Year Performance Walking Silent. And they can look that up on Facebook and find it. It's an open group. Anybody is welcome to join in.
Yeah.
I did put out a message on it earlier today just saying, I'm coming to talk to Kevin. Any ideas on what makes this meaningful for you? I mean, I can put it in my own words, but it did strike me that what people said, it all kind of coalesces around the same ideas. One person wrote, strangers seem to be taking to him in today's fearful world makes me contemplate the greatness of humankind. I mean, because we're taught to fear. We have, this insecurity from all the news we watch, all the world news. It's not just our neighborhood.
And it's the opposite of fear? I've learned, I really believe this. Perfect love casts out all fear. And when people show love, they overcome that fear. And when kindness is an expression of love.
what did another woman write that I think, I asked, what are the challenges or concerns? And she wrote, he's not my child, and I worry about him as if he is. And there's several mothers who are on here, and, how is he?
Yeah.
You've never met him, but how is he? That we want to care.
Right.
And it's much more tangible than, give us 10,000 likes and we'll cure cancer or something, which I think are kind of more vacuous attempts to do the same caring
And have a
thing.
feeling of purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I find that's interesting, and I think people want to see the goodness in other people, and I think if you can draw that out, I mean, what a wonderful art form that would be. In that, so what else are people saying?
What we were talking about, Greg, is the impact Greg has made on people's lives when they say, quote, I'll never forget him. Amazing to me how one person can affect another so much without saying a word. And I do think your face-to-face contact that you talk about, and you look at the photos of him, the eyes, it's much more expressive.
It's like reading a book with one or two words, which triggers a certain part of the mind, and you're looking at the person, and you're really trying to figure out what's going on in there, with the
So
facial.
you're totally focused on someone. You're not endlessly multitasking.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I wonder whether conversation around the table when people take them in for dinner or something, I just, in my mind, I'm thinking, what's that like?
There was a photo that one group sent. It was a whole bunch of young guys all in a kitchen and their girlfriends, all like it was a party, and there's Greg in the middle. It's like Forrest Gump in the middle, and here's all these people from West Virginia. It's this big family shot, and it's so nice to see. And then I think I asked, well, how'd you come upon Greg? And what was and they're teenagers, and they said, we were just kind of hanging around. It was Saturday night, and we were wondering what to do, and he walked by.
But how did they know who he was?
Well, of course, wouldn't it be the day before on the news, there's 3 kids who kill somebody because they, you know what I mean?
Oh.
So as a parent, I always think the worst.
Right.
But I have to remind myself that, that is such the smallest decimal place of a percentage,
Right.
those sort of stories. Yet, whenever it happens these days, given the news cycle, we hear about it all. So,
Right. And a recent tragedy that just happened. I mean, these things constantly worry parents. All
how
the
can
time.
you protect kids? And then, I think that's another whole topic for discussion as parents, that we want to support our kids and encourage them to pursue their passions. We want them to be open-minded, not closed-minded. We want them to find their passions now in life, not set themselves up for the midlife crisis later just because they did everything their parents expected. And then after they lose their parents, they're age 50, and they start to think, now why was I doing all that stuff? So I support his wrestling with his identity now. I mean, there's research that suggests that identity formers, people who struggle to establish their identity, compared to identity adopters who sort of just take on their parents' identity,
Right.
have it easier in some ways later in life. These sorts of struggles of redefining their identity later are easier. So I support it,
Right.
but I worry about his safety. That's the number one. I don't think about it as, some parents, maybe parents from more the tiger mom type would think, well, he ought to be, getting another degree or getting a year ahead in his work. And I think, well, he's got 50 years to work. This is a year well invested for him.
Oh, I think, depending on, number one, it is an art form. Art, you sell art. You can, if he wants to turn this into a profit at the end, that could be his decision. He's going to definitely get a free education walking across this country.
Sure.
He's going to meet a lot, excuse me, a lot of people, I think, and he's going to, I think there'll be a lot of lessons that he's going to learn about people in a way that no schooling could teach you, no possible way.
And I think the simplicity of his persona, what he presents, gives him a unique opportunity to learn about people because he's holding something constant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be like we sometimes joke, or I do to clients of mine who are out on online dating, you know, Match.com, I joke about, well, you should just reserve the same booth at the restaurant and have each guy you meet come and eat the same thing, hold everything constant like a scientific experiment. Well, that's sort of what Greg's doing. He is this simple person. I am Greg. I am doing this. And he gets to then see the variety in the way people respond to him.
Right.
So it's sort of like an old ink blot test. You know, the variety in people's responses is about the people, not about him, because he's a constant.
Has there been any negatives at all?
You know, I don't know, because, you know, the negatives aren't going to call me on the phone. You know, I have nice elderly people call me on the phone, you know, and it rings like, oh, Pennsylvania. My first thought is, as perhaps when you get a call from Afghanistan, the very first thought is, oh my God, I hope it's not some bad.
Right.
But then you get a friendly voice, and, you know, oh, me and my husband are feeding him potatoes and whatever, and oh, good, you know. So we hear the good things. But Greg has mailed me some of the cards and things that he's written on the fly, you know, and some of them, and I'll show some of them on Facebook perhaps at some point, and he can tell the story of what they mean. But some of them are things like, I'm really sorry, I didn't know this was your property. I just am looking for a place to camp for the night, and, you know, these sorts of, that, you know, even the handwriting looks a little shaky or rushed on the cards, and, you know.
There's a picture of a shotgun shell on the ground. Get out of here, you!
I'm unarmed.
Yankee.
And
At
I
least
do
his
worry.
accent won't give him away, right?
As his hair gets longer, a la Forrest Gump, will he lose some of that sort of boyish, preppy look? I mean, he sets out as sort of a preppy college student look with his pristine backpack and he pulls a cart that's a bicycle-type cart, a bicycle trailer that you post, you know, attached to the bike post, but he has it adapted so he can pull it or push it, and it has a big waterproof
Does he have a change of clothes?
Oh, yeah, and he'll stop and wash clothes and reload. But as the year progresses and the beard gets longer and the hair gets longer and things look dirty and grungy as they're going to, I mean, how many nights do you sleep in a tent and keep your backpack looking like it's first day of school, you know, so he may present a different image later.
That's interesting too, yeah, come on in. And
people may react to him differently,
right.
You know, is he going to start to look a little more like a homeless person? Is he going to be
and
victim
will the
of
attitudes
abuse?
change towards him? Oh, that's interesting.
Right,
Got a job!
I kind of worry about that,
Yeah.
you know, will he, you know.
So he's not shaving. I didn't know that part. That's
Will
interesting.
people be a little less welcoming? You know, it's interesting. One thing I've noticed with the Facebook efforts is that sometimes somebody in the evening will, you know, rather later in the evening, will ask to join the Facebook group. And we'll see, oh, well, they're in West Virginia. And then the next day, we'll get some feedback. You know, Greg spent the night in the driveway and he left, he's doing well, and, you know, and just an amazing kid, and, you know, and so what that tells me is that they're getting online to sort of vet him before they, you know, make him his potato dinner. They're Googling and finding him, you know, before, so they're somewhat checking. And
that's a good idea.
And they find the video he did with you and the thing with the Telegraph and NPR did a piece. They find all that.
National Patch did something here
The Patch. So it gives them a sense of legitimacy. And they, oh, okay, this isn't some scam, someone who's going to, you know, rob me or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's fear, but I'm pleased to see how quickly people will let go of the fear and welcome someone in and want to be helpful and maternal or paternal toward him.
That's interesting. We're running out of time, so you had one final quote here?
Well, there were a few that people put up. In fact, it was my daughter, my 26-year-old daughter responded, and I thought she put it very well, that she's thought this through. She says, as a whole, I find it incredibly inspiring that Greg, her little brother Greg, has been able to follow his intuition and dedicate himself entirely to this single idea. He's dismissed all societal expectations and the opinions and feedback from others, and he's held faith in his idea. As he's dropped everything we consider essential to everyday life, now he doesn't even wear a watch, And yet he's still smiling more genuinely than ever before in every picture posted, that we can conclude that faith leads to happiness.
Interesting. Very
So
interesting.
he's pursuing his passion, and I know in his mind that happiness is pursuing your passion, and if it's not a passion that other people think is important, so be it.
Sure, yeah. We're all individuals.
Right.
Yeah, just
And
like our
it's your
fingerprint.
dedication to something that matters, not the value that other people ascribe to it.
That's a very good lesson for a lot of us, a very good lesson. And, you know, it's funny, every time I see a Tommy Hilfiger or a Aeropostale or a Nike, after a while I'm thinking, why are you wearing their advertising? I mean, okay, it's you're trying to identify with something. but
You're being more like, you know, rather than unique, you're being more.
You're just, just trying to blend. And good for you. That's your choice.
But you know, I think the essential contradiction that we all struggled with as he headed out on this was his intense dedication to something that we didn't understand as, or as valuable.
Or maybe as
But that's the very message.
maybe
you
as
know.
it progresses, we'll see more of the value. One more time on the website or the Facebook page.
The Facebook page, especially, it's Greg Hindy, 1 year performance, walking silence.
Great. And Carl,
Thank
Dad,
you very much, Kevin.
welcome.
Appreciate it. Well,
And thank you for watching Gate City Chronicles. Check out the Facebook page, like it, and follow. And check out the video. We actually have our first interview on, I believe it's on the Nashua Patch, also on YouTube. So you can get a little flavor for the conversation that we had. So until next week, thanks for watching Gate City Chronicles. Thank you for watching Gate City Chronicles. And we want to thank our sponsor, Avard Dean of Clean, the carpet cleaner in Nashua. You can reach him at 603-630-1743. And if you would like some more information about Gate City Chronicles or want to be a guest, contact me at gatecitychronicles@gmail.com. Until next week, thanks for watching.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.